Yo, what's up YouTube? It's Cynical Apex here with a different sort of video in contrast to the more drama or commentary oriented videos that I had done in the last couple of days. And that will more than likely become standard on this channel going forward as I actually reboot the channel to an extent whenever I feel like posting a video or a topic interests me. However, that's not why we're here. We're here because another interest of mine is sports, and more specifically tennis, of which the Australian Open Women's Final is actually occurring tomorrow. So I figured that whether or not you are a tennis fan, or if you are interested like I am in the Women's Final, I would give you guys a bit of a breakdown and a bit of a preview along with my prediction for who will win the final between Sofia Kenin from the USA, who is the 14th seed, and Gabrine Muguruza, if I probably pronounced that last name wrong, so feel free to correct me in the comments with the pronunciation, who comes into this unseeded, but is currently ranked number 32 in the world, and actually peaked at number 1 in the world back in 2017. So she has showcased in the past that she has the talent to get to number 1 in the world, but can she get back there at some point? She has the potential to, but anyway, without further ado, let's get this show on the road, shall we? Starting with each respective player's, playstyle, in which there are actually similarities between the two. However, there are also significant differences. Whilst both do play an aggressive style, Sofia's is more of a rounded aggression, in which she won't look to control the baseline as much or with drop shots and power, but looks to do it more via just pure aggression mixed in with precision and a wide range of shots that she has at her disposal, whilst Gabrine is more about the baseline power game, or what I like to call between the lines on the baseline, whilst mixing in the ability to move and slide that has made her into a clay court queen, so to speak, and as she says herself, Roland Garros, which is the location of the French Open, is her territory due to the clay courts. However, the inherent high-risk, high-reward nature of her playstyle lends itself to a lot of inconsistency and losses in matches where she really shouldn't have lost to people that were ranked multiple spots behind her, something that Kenin doesn't necessarily have issues with. As I said, Kenin has a more rounded style, but is also more adept defensively than Gabrine due to her ability to hit her forehand as high as shoulder height, as well as being able to add slice to her backhand, which will disguise it as a drop shot and sort of force Gabrine to play outside of her comfort zone and actually come to the net if she wants to be able to adequately return those sort of disguised drop shots. However, Gabrine can serve up to 182 kilometers, which for a power-oriented player is just another weapon she has. Yes, the ability of Kenin to return that serve and to get rallies going will play into her more aggressive, versatile style, but if Gabrine can simply overwhelm her and overpower her whilst keeping her faults down and making sure that her first serve is in play at least, I would say 85% of the time, maybe even 90% if she puts it all together, which will allow her to dictate the terms and use that more power-oriented game to her advantage. Next up is, how did they both get here? How did we get this final which I'm not sure many people were expecting at the start of this campaign, at the start of this Australian Open. I know I wasn't. Let's start with Kenin, shall we? To begin, Kenin was absolutely dominant in her opening 2 rounds against Martina Trevisan of Italy and Anley of the United States, so a fellow American. She really never looked threatened in either of these 2 games. To be totally honest with you, watching them, you could tell that she was setting the terms early and she was forcing her opponents into making errors or playing the way that she wanted them to. Now, the question for me after seeing those first 2 rounds was, yes, she's a number 14 seed for a reason, and she is a really good player, even at the young age of 21, which I did say gives her a lot of potential and high ceiling. But did she still have that grind game that we had seen in 2017 with her? Was she capable of using that to her advantage alongside her more naturally aggressive style, especially when it comes to the hard courts of Melbourne Park, and more specifically the Australian Open in general? The 3rd round against the Chinese Zheng Sui, which I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing incorrectly. Again, you can drop the pronunciation down in the comments for me. That would be much appreciated. But this would be another straight sets win. However, this would be the first time where she would really have to grind, as she won the first set 7-5 and the second set 9-7 in a tiebreak. So 7-6 overall. What was a very even contest. I thought it could have gone to a 3rd set, honestly, as I thought Zheng looked really good, and I thought she may have actually been a slightly better player, but Kenin stepped up when she needed to and showed that she still had that grind game. She still had that counter-punching ability that makes her ever more potent here in the Australian Open. Her 4th round encounter was with Coco Gauff, who she actually dropped a set to. However, that was one of those instances where Gauff actually did manage to step up. She managed to take the fight to Kenin from the start, but then once Kenin dropped that set, you could tell it ignited something under her, and she kicked up back to sort of the dominance that she had shown in the first 2 rounds and just dismissed Coco without much issue, which would then bring her to facing Ons Jabeur, who had beaten Caroline Wozniacki previously. Now, honestly, I like Ons. I think she's talented, and she definitely did give Kenin a fight in this matchup. Kenin did not look efficient at all. In fact, I would say this was probably one of Kenin's sloppiest performances, if not her most sloppy performance. But again, she managed to make it count when it mattered, and she managed to get the big points that would essentially split the 2 in this matchup, even though again it was another straight victory. And yes, that is a common theme throughout this breakdown. Sofia is able to get those big points when they matter. She's able to use her counter-punching to absorb what the opponent is throwing at her and just hit back either at the lines or at the net with her mass drop shot for winners. Not necessarily surprise winners, but some of them are, but they're winners nonetheless. And as we all know, it doesn't matter how close you might look on the court. All that matters is who walks out with the W. And she did do that all throughout this tournament. Even against the world number 1 and the person who was honestly my pick to not only make the final but win the whole Australian Open. Of course, that is Australian Ash Barty. Ash, of course, just not the most consistent in these moments. She does have a history of choking, but I'm not going to chalk it down to Ash choking. Because if I'm being totally honest, I actually don't think Ash choked as bad as some people might think. I think, again, this was just Kenin's pressure getting to her, as it had to all Kenin's foes in this tournament. And Sofia able to get those big points where they mattered. Yes, Ash's first serve was off. 50% is unacceptable at this level, especially against an opponent like Kenin, who is going to absolutely punish you for any misstep that you make, which is exactly what she did. However, in saying that, Ash went toe-to-toe with her, and yet again, Sofia was able to get the points where they mattered most, and use that to leverage her way to a straight sets victory. And one that was deserved in the end. She was the better player. She was the one that did step up and get the points where she needed to. And she did convert 2 of her 4 breakpoint opportunities, as opposed to Ash only converting 1 of those. So that's not to say Kenin herself was able to control her double faults. She had issues along this road with double faults herself. In fact, I didn't mention it, but she had 3 double faults and 0 aces against Jabor. Now, Ons is a terrific returner, so that could account for the no aces. But those 3 double faults showed a little bit of footwork, problems with her serving. Now, she had issues with that throughout the tournament, but I think if she can polish that up, if she can lessen it to maybe just 1 double fault, preferably 0, she'll have a really good chance at winning this Australian Open. As for Gabrine, her first round was actually, aside from the first set where she dropped it 6-0 to Shelby Rogers, it was almost a stroll in the park, as she would only drop 1 more game the rest of the match and would allow herself to get into it and overwhelm and overpower Shelby on the way to a win that was harder than it really should have been if you actually look at the match in its context, which is something that she was not helped by her 35% win percentage on second serves, which is something I do think she would need to have patched up. And at the time I thought maybe she was a 2nd or 3rd round exit, because yes, she had the power game, but you could tell that she did have inconsistency issues even in this match. She would beat Anja Tomljanovic 6-3, 3-6, 6-3 in the second round. Another 3-setter and another match where her inconsistencies definitely showcased themselves. But she was able to maintain control and do enough to get away with the win. She did deserve the win here. She was the better player. I thought Tomljanovic has talent, and I think she's got upside to her, but here I thought Gabrine was definitely worthy of going through. However, at this point I was almost convinced that she would be gone in the 3rd round. I wasn't sold that her more power and movement oriented style was transitioning to the hard court, and that once the talent level sort of took that step up, she would probably fold as she had been known to do it in the past. Especially when you knew that those sort of higher caliber sort of players would be able to punish her harder and more frequently for any miscues that she might make. Well, despite her first serve woes in actually getting it to land in the 3rd round, she made handy work of Sevdola. Sorry, I pronounced that one wrong. So, again, as I said, and I'll probably just say it, anytime I do pronounce a last name wrong, please let me know in the comments. It is much appreciated. But anyway, she was actually the one that looked like the 5th seed in this straight sets win, where she only dropped 3 games. And honestly, although this one did look a little closer Gabrine was dominant throughout in this, and she just overwhelmed Elena and made her look second class. Which, when you think about where she is now, should have been a sign that, hey, maybe she can actually make a run here. Maybe the power game will work if she's able to control her first serve and start putting it all together. Against Kiki Burton's, she would dominate winning her points on the first serve, even if she didn't necessarily patch up her actual landing the first serve in percentage rate, only slightly lifting it from where it was the previous round. But again, she looked a much better player, and almost like she had actually attained the 5th seed that I referenced in the last round against the number 9 seed, who really just did not look like she was ever comfortable. Which, of course, is the sort of effect that Gabrine has on opponents, owing to that overwhelming power that she possesses on the court. I'm actually going to speak about her quarter and semi-final matchups together against Anastasia, whose last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I know I will absolutely butcher it. Yes, just like I have butchered many last names in this video. And Simona Halep, who is from Romania. Anastasia is Russian, by the way. What I mean by this is that Gabrine would be able to actually get the points where they mattered, a lot like what Sofia had done, and as I referenced a lot in hers. However, it's a little different in that Gabrine's inconsistencies showed, but neither Simona or Anastasia were really able to actually punish her for it effectively, which gave her enough of a window to actually keep going at him to the point where they eventually could not bend further and just had to break, giving her the power and opportunity she needed to push through and take the wins in both occasions. I thought that Halep matchup in the semis should have gone 3 due to the fact I thought Halep had actually performed considerably better, but then Gabrine, of course, did get the points where they matter, and in the end, that's really all that counts, and it was chalked up as a straight sets victory and the road to the final for her. Now, we're actually going to go to the final. Well, technically, it's the second last part, but it's the last part before my prediction, which is what I think you're all coming here for. But anyway, this is the keys to victory for both competitors. I'll start with Gabrine this time. Gabrine she lives and dies by that first serve to an extent. Yes, she has a good rate of winning on second serve, but if she can't land that first serve and she allows it to rattle her and get her in situations where she is double faulting considerably, she's not going to have a chance to win. So she's going to want to land that in, as I said earlier, 85 to 90% of the time is what I'd be looking at. I might go third down, maybe 80% minimum is what she'd want to land it in if she's going to put pressure on Sofia and sort of let her know, hey, this is the game we're going to play. Alongside that, she has to control the baseline. She has to almost force this to be a baseline on baseline sort of battle instead of allowing Sofia to actually move around the court and even just drop the ball in at the net and get it into more of an all-around game. Yes, Gabrine can move, but that is mainly from one side of the baseline to the other, and with her legs movement stuff, which does not translate to hard court, even though it has served her well here. I didn't mention it, but her movement was able to keep her in rallies, as well as allowing her to use her sort of power in able to get balls by her opposition and straight up beat them. As we already know, she's not necessarily known for trying to go right on the lines or actually trying to sort of hit winners. She's more so trying to force either errors or get the ball by her opposition. So if she can do that here and sort of settle back in the baseline, get herself into rhythm, she's going to go a long way to victory. And the third and final key is don't allow yourself to be in dragged out rallies. Now, as I said, Gabrine, that might contradict the point about Gabrine being decent at rallies. However, she knows that if she's coming up against someone that's going to come right at her, she's not going to necessarily want to be in a rally unless she knows that she's controlling the tempo of that rally, which might fly in the face of not wanting a long rally. However, if she's able to sort of shorten rallies and get herself those early winners, she could more so frustrate and actually use Sofia's aggression against her, which is something that she'll probably necessarily need to do in order to walk out of this Australian Open with the top crown. As for Sofia, it's similar in terms of the first serve. She knows that she's going to have to get landed in at least 80% of the time. She might be able to get away with 75% if she's able to be more precise around the court, if she's able to sort of force Gabrine into positions where she's not comfortable with the serve and sort of apply pressure to her that way, much like Gabrine can with her power and speed. Sofia can do it more with precision, as long as she limits her needless double faults and is able to efficiently land her first serve. The second point that I want to bring up with her is don't feel like you have to pressure yourself into playing Gabrine's game. Don't be afraid to channel that 2017 Sofia and make it into sort of a power versus counter-punching style, as that will actually be more effective in wearing Gabrine down and forcing her into her unforced errors. Yes, that seems like an oxymoron and kind of is, but if you can put her in positions where she feels like she does have a window to use her power to beat you, but then either misjudges the ball or gets a little too excited to play the power shot, you can sort of manipulate her into making those unforced errors. Now, you're not forcing her into those errors per se, but rather you're getting in her psyche and she's making those errors more so because you've rattled her. Sure, you can play the aggression game against her power and sort of use it as a yin and yang, sort of a counterbalance, but I'm not necessarily sure that's the strategy she needs to take. Otherwise, the more aggressive she is, the more powerful Gabrine's going to be in response, and she's going to open herself up for defeat. Or rather, for Gabrine to use her power to just overwhelm no matter how much aggression Sofia might be throwing at her, which is what a power player wants you to do. And the third point is quite obvious. Bring the game to Gabrine and force her to come to you, rather than settling back and letting her get into her baseline rhythm. Force her to the net. Force her sort of to the inside baseline to make sure that she's not ever able to truly get that power game of hers running. Force her to be consistently on the move, which, although, as we said, she's very capable of doing, if you're consistently on the move and you're having to focus on trying to not only win a rally, but also moving and making sure that you're in the right position for where the next ball is going to be hit, then you're not necessarily able to focus on the power, and you end up putting up sort of weaker shots or even slicing shots, which would play right into Sofia's strengths. If she's able to do that, then she's able to counteract the power and almost negate it, forcing Gabrine to become exposed sort of when the spotlights are shining brightest, and Sofia is coming right at her consistently, using that aggression to her true advantage, to its optimum. Because we know that if she, as well, this isn't another point, but we know that the longer the rallies go, the more that is actually going to favor Sofia rather than Gabrine, which is why I said in Gabrine's keys to victory that she needs to try to end the rallies as soon as possible and take away the aggressiveness, whilst, of course, the inverse is true for Sofia. Anyway, we are up to the part where I will now reveal my prediction, and honestly, it's Sofia Kenin. I've really been impressed with her throughout this tournament. I had her pigeonholed as sort of a 4th round exit. I thought she was good. As I said, she's only 21, so there's a lot of upside there. But I thought she was definitely someone that could get to the 4th round with her style. But then I felt like she just mightn't be able to take that next step just yet. However, she's shown that she can, just like Gabrine has on the other side of the coin. However, in this particular matchup, I like the sort of more precise nature of Sofia. I like how more focused she is in her aggression rather than being raw, pure power oriented like Gabrine is. Do I think it's going to be easy? No, I do think it will be a straight sets win though. I'm going to go with a 7-5, 6-4 as the set scores in this, with Kenin walking out with the Australian Open trophy next to her. Anyways, thanks for watching, and feel free to like, comment, and subscribe on this video, and a breakdown of the men's final will be coming soon. Bye!